Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. I'm your humble host, Brooks Austin. And as you might have noticed, we got some new intro music, and I think I'm kind of fond of it. To be honest with you, it's a little more of the nightly variety than that previous. But on tonight's episode, man, we're going to recap. Since the football offseason and the news are a little slow, we're going to be talking about the XFL and what our initially names to look out for, as well as some of the other top storylines from this weekend's action in that spring football league. Questions later on in the form of a mailbag towards the end of the show, depending on how segments go, depending on how long we are. Again, we may open up the mailbag towards the end of the show, so have your questions ready for the comment section. And as my sports radio hero would say, tonight's show is going to be a little bit of a lazy river variety. Where the show is going to take us, wherever it takes us, that's where we'll end up. But before we get into any of the rest of the XFL storylines, man, I got to do the quick business right quick and support the show. However you found us, whether you're listening to us on podcasts, whether you're watching us on Facebook via a stream or Twitter, whatever it is, man, show us some support wherever you're at. If you're on Facebook, give us a thumbs up. If you're over there on the podcast, hit that 5-star review. And leave us a comment. And for those of you guys watching on the live stream, if you didn't know, SEC Nightly is made available via a podcast. So wherever you catch out or wherever you check out your podcast, will probably guarantee will be available, actually, as a matter of fact. So just had to take that quick break to ask you guys to give us a little bit of support. We worked pretty hard on this fancy green screen, man. Hours. You would have no idea how long it took me to put this together. Actually, it didn't take that long. But anyways, it takes me a little bit of time to put these shows together. As much of a lazy river as tonight's show might seem, it took a little bit of, pre-work prep, some time away from the beautiful wife of mine and the soon-to-be child. So we appreciate you guys for watching in tonight. And as always, show us some support. But let's get right into it, man. Some XFL talking points, right? And we'll start with base. And the green screen, for some reason, thinks my jacket here is green, but it is gray. So I don't know what's going on there. You might see me disappear a few times tonight. Just the green. Anyways, Aaron Murray struggled a little bit, right? The only time you don't want to be trending on Twitter or going viral of any sense is when you're doing bad, right? When you're not playing great on a national stage. And that's exactly what happened to Aaron Murray this weekend. Looked very, very rough in his debut there. 16 of 34 for 231, 2 picks, and had 2 fumbles. Granted, he fell on both fumbles, so the turnover margin doesn't look as bad. But if you're watching the football game, it didn't look great. The deep throws were too short. The short throws were too deep. The accuracy was way off. Looked like a guy who'd been playing golf the last 16 months or 12 months, not necessarily preparing to play semi or professional levels of football. So that's kind of the reasoning why he looked a little bit off. But other than that, man, there's several other reasonings we'll get into here in a second. But again, it just looked like he hadn't played professional football in quite some time, even dating back to his AAF. And you don't know what these guys have been doing, right? You don't know when they got this phone call that this XFL is going to be starting, or whether or not they got the phone call in, last summer or towards the end of last fall. How much of preparation time did these guys have to get their bodies right, their minds right, and for the quarterbacks, their arms right, to go out there and put out a product onto the field? It looked like Aaron Murray just hadn't gotten, his body in tune. We'll talk into some more of these reasons of why, we didn't quite see very much success yesterday from number 11 and the former Georgia Bulldogs quarterback. Look, this was Aaron Murray's first opportunity as a starting quarterback on opening day since 2013 in Athens. This guy hadn't been rolled out as a starting quarterback or quote unquote face of a franchise in 6 or 7 years. Okay. So, a lot of people tell me, well, he got reps with the Vipers. Well, he was sitting behind Matt Sims there. So it was deep down the depth chart at Kansas City. It was deep down the depth chart at Minnesota or Philadelphia, wherever he went next. And then he ended there before he inevitably got out and spent a little bit of time in TV there with ESPN. And then he was buried on the depth chart with the Legends, right? And now we get to the Vipers. He's got an opportunity to be the day one opening starter. And to be quite honest, he kind of pooped the bed, right? Didn't look great. Flowers came in and looked a little bit better, and we'll talk about him a little bit more, down the road. But it was a similar looking performance to what we saw in the AAF from Aaron Murray last season. Look, 3 touchdowns, to 8 interceptions in limited action for the Atlanta Legends last year. Didn't look great, right? The mobility wasn't quite there. This is a guy who's aging up to 30 years old. Look, as much as people want to say he may have been semi-mobile, legs up underneath him in his days there in Athens playing for the University of Georgia, but he's 30 years old, guys. He's nearing that time of where, professional quarterbacks have to start winning from within the pocket because their legs are no longer there. That's exactly where Aaron Murray is at this point in his career. And with that being said, if he has no offensive line or a very small semblance of an offensive line, yesterday sacked 3 times there against the Guardians, sacked 3 times and countless other pressure balls. I'm not making excuses for the guy, but that's just not his steez. That's not the way Aaron Murray gets down. It never has been, even dating back to his days at Georgia. You got to protect the guy. I mean, can't be sending free fires at him, right? He's not going to make a guy miss in the pocket and then extend the play with his legs. Extend the legs with his play. Anyways, he's not going to extend the play with his legs to the variety of getting out of the pocket and throwing bombs like, maybe a Joe Burrow does. He's got to have parts around him, right? We've always known that, even dating back to his days at Georgia. I know I keep saying that, but that's really the last sample size, as I told you earlier, that we really have for Aaron Murray. Didn't play much in the NFL. Didn't play much there at the AAF. I mean, people are going to say he played in 8 games, but a lot of that was mop-up duty, and he didn't really get a chance to be inserted as the guy in a non-blowout situation until Game 4 last spring. Again, not very high quality and not very high-quality offensive line play. Look, guys can come off of the street and play defensive line because all they got to do is see ball, find ball. I mean, there's some intricate defensive strategies going on. There's some slants, some twists, some blitz packages, some coverages that those guys got to play. But for the most part, defense, if you've ever played football, it's like the very first day you show up for fall camp, no matter how good your offense is, no matter how bad your defense is, I guarantee you day one when y'all strap up and go 11 on 11 and go full speed, the defense is probably going to win because coach is either sending nothing but blitz packages or B, he's just telling guys to go find ball while the offensive guys have slow thought processes and figure out what they're doing and where they're going, as opposed to the defense just going out and finding the ball. So just like in the NFL, where you may see a couple of weak offensive just horrendousness, right? Where, a couple of years back, the two teams that were favored to, maybe face a game in the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles there at the Link in Philadelphia played an 8-12 opening day football game because it was awful, right? Because the offenses hadn't gotten any congruentness. I'm making up words at this point. They're not congruent on that offensive line at this point, which is why I think if you're not going to be able to provide protection, that Tampa Bay Vipers football team may be better off going with Quentin Flowers, not only because what he can do with his legs, being able to extend plays and being able to, you don't have to block everybody every time, okay? If the right tackle gets beat, maybe Quentin Flowers can beat the defensive end, and then we still have a chance to make a play. Aaron Murray's not going to be able to do that. He's pretty much a sitting duck back there at this point, and if you can't protect the duck, well, then you guys get it. I mean, it's just that's the point where we are at this point in Aaron Murray's career. You're going to have to protect him. And if you can't do it off putting in the kid from South Florida, who I'm going to be honest, dating back to Quentin Flowers' days as a South Florida, I don't know if there are very many more entertaining football players at this point. Even now, he's still as elusive and as electric as he ever was there, in the AAC or whatever conference those guys play. A really good football player. And I think they're probably going to give Aaron Murray another shot because you don't pay that guy as much as they are. Again, XFL rosters, I think the Vipers have 4 quarterbacks on roster, and most of their financial, salary implications are tied up at the quarterback position because Oliver Luck truly believed that the league's success is going to be determined off of the quarterback play. So you better go out and get guys like Landry Jones, who, back last season when Ben Roethlisberger and starting quarterbacks started going down like flies, well, people started reaching out to people like Landry Jones and saying, hey, come be our backup, or hey, come start a couple. He was already tied down to an XFL contract because he wanted an opportunity to start. And guess who wasn't available week 1 here in the XFL? You guessed it, Landry Jones. So these quarterbacks are highly paid. They're going to cycle through them. You're going to see multiple quarterbacks almost every single football game in the XFL, unless somebody's doing like what old boy from Houston Roughnecks is doing right now and just ball. I'm going to see a guy like this every year, I believe, in these spring football systems that really comes out and takes advantage of the opportunity that he has all camp next year in the NFL. I think Cardale Jones has got an opportunity to do that. He just left the NFL, right? Was just pushed out of that LA Chargers quarterback room and is now in the XFL. Big-bodied guy, can throw it a country mile. He'll definitely get an opportunity to continue to play in the NFL, I think, moving forward, just determining on, based off of what he's going to end up doing this spring. If he balls out, I mean, it's very, very clear that these XFL rosters are set up and the dates and the schedule for this league is set up so these guys can immediately get into the NFL and start working. They're going to play a full season. They're going to play this spring 10 game schedule, play the playoffs if their team makes it, and then it'll end right before the college basketball tournament. And then these guys will have, 2 or 3 weeks off. And then if they make or get invited to a training camp or an OTA, they'll be right back at it. Hopefully body's fully healthy. That's the only thing you're risking at this point. You get the exposure, right? But you're risking injury. So, back to, in conclusion on Aaron Murray. Now, I know we steered away a little bit here from him. If you don't have good offensive line quarterback or good offensive line play, it's really, really hard for a guy like that to perform well inside the pocket because there is no pocket, right? It's, what is a pocket passer, right? It's a guy who passes from the pocket. Well, if there is no pocket, if there's no umbrella, right? There's no offensive line providing an umbrella. You're not going to get much production out of him. You're going to get 16 of 34 for 231, 2 picks and 2 fumbles. So that's just what it is. So I don't really think, Aaron Murray was on ESPN Daily and Mina Kimes, their daily podcast, similar to this format, right? It's kind of, don't tell ESPN. That's kind of what I got the idea from, but we run nightly and we just do SEC. ESPN Daily had Aaron Murray on their podcast with Mina Kimes. And Mina was kind of asking Aaron, why go into this? Why go play this brand of football? What's in it for you? What's kind of the need? And obviously quarterback speak, first thing he went to, I love the game. Opportunity to play a game I love, all fine and dandy. But he also went on to say that, all he really does in the springtime is play golf anyways. So I just wonder how much of this is, if it really is an opportunity and something that Aaron Murray's seeking out for future in terms of an endeavor into the NFL, if he's really trying to put tape together for that preparation he put in going up to this point. Might have just, I'm not saying he just showed up and threw the cleats out there, but Saturday or Sunday's performance kind of look like that. And again, I know there's a lot of flying bullets going around him and not a lot of great talent up in front of him. Again, tons of pressures, tons of sacks. We can make all those excuses that we want. He just didn't play well. Flat out, just did not play well Sunday. And that's that. That's no hot take, right? Everybody in the media world's already trashed on him. I at least came with the excuses first and then hit you with the real, which is that he's just, at this point in his career, 30 years old, the window of him being a professional quarterback, especially in the NFL at these days where everything's off-platform throws. Look at the guys who are succeeding in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. The list goes on forever. And I missed a bunch of really, really talented names. All those guys, except for Tom Brady, in recent history and recent success at the quarterback position, they're all quote-unquote mobile. They all can run 4.7s or lower. All right. That's just the reality of the business nowadays in the NFL. It's athlete or quarterback athlete, not, just a stand in the pocket, be a statue type of quarterback. Those days are gone. Used to it was, are you 6'5"? Are you 240 pounds? Can you throw it a country mile? Can you, sit there and throw the deep post and take a shot off your chin? Those aren't the checklists anymore. Nowadays, it's, can you throw on the run? Can you win when everyone else? Can you win when everyone else is beat? Things like that. Can you move outside the pocket and make these off-platform throws? Can you win when everything breaks down? If you can't, probably can't play in professional football at these day and age at the quarterback position. So a little bit more about the XFL. An average of 3.3 million vendors game on Saturday at 2 o'clock on ABC. Those are really promising numbers. But if you guys will remember, the AAF did a really good number last year on the opening game. Everybody's just curious, right? It's the fact of you want to see what the product's going to inevitably look like on the field. And then you'll make your judgment from there. I think that's why you see all these media outlets, such as myself, right here on this first talking point underneath these television numbers was that it was the opening game, right? But they're not going to tell you that AAF's numbers dived like crazy last year after everyone checked out the product and realized that A, nobody was really in the stands, and B, the football isn't really that great. And here's one thing I know about watching the product on TV of football, and that's what I think they're selling the most. If you watch these games on TV, you know that they are doing absolutely everything to keep you captivated as a member of that audience. They're letting you listen into huddles. They're letting you listen into what the referees are discussing. I mean, they're letting you listen into what the coaches are calling from the sideline. They are doing absolutely everything to keep you captivated as a television audience. But if that quality of football isn't good, if it's still 22-3 football games midway through the fourth quarter, people are going to turn those televisions off. It's just the fact of the matter. But what I will tell you is, anybody ever watch Pac-12 After Dark? Anybody ever watched a Washington State game, or Washington, Cal and Washington State are always barn burners. I'm talking 55-53. Both teams throw for a combined 1,400 yards. That kind of stuff's entertaining. And I'm going to tell you right now, watch these XFL guys do it. So if they can figure out a way to score points and score more, I know that's very, very simple, right? Hey, just go score points. Well, they're trying. I mean, they really are trying. They're putting in rules, and that's our next talking point we're going to hit on. They're putting in rules to increase scoring, or at least force teams to try to score more in terms of going forward on fourth down and whatnot. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But 22-6 or 22-3 or whatever the hell that Generals was just, man. That's brutal to watch. I don't care how much of a football aficionado or a football fanatic you claim to be. That's tough football. That's, the Giants and Redskins. If they're playing a pooper like that on Sunday afternoon, I'm probably not going to watch it either. One thing I might, suggest, but they stack their games totally different. So I was going to say red zone for XFL. That'd be pretty cool, right? But they don't have 16 games going on Sundays, 8 at 1 o'clock. So it's a little different. Can't have red zone. We understand that. But hey, red zone for college football. Andrew Siciliano, if you're listening, get your butt on it. Figure that out. Back to these TV deals. The TV audience was great, right? We told you it's a product made for TV, but the attendance didn't quite look so good, right? There are 4 home crowds, 4 football games Sunday. So that's 4 home crowds. They averaged about 17,500 fans. That's not going to cut it. But again, it's a TV audience, a TV-made sport. If you're watching a game on TV and there's nobody in the stands, again, very similar to a 2020 or 22-3 game, probably going to turn it off. If the people there aren't interested, you probably aren't going to be interested. So at the very least, they're going to have to maintain those, attendance numbers. They're going to have to hold those throughout the 10-game schedule. And I think they might be able to, the Seattle Dragons that are going to host their first opening home game next weekend at the Seahawks Stadium, they're having to open up more seats to accommodate an expected, higher attendance than what some of these other teams have seen. So it's regionalized. We've seen some of these teams like St. Louis, they're really backing that football team or at least they're starting to, or showing it at the beginning of it, because obviously they just had the Rams ripped from them, right? Teams like Seattle, that is a sports town just dying for something to root for even more, right? When they ripped the Supersonics from them, if you guys have never read those stories or heard those stories about that, man, watching the city of Seattle go through losing their Sonics. They really, really cared about them. And so I just think they're hungry for anything at this point. So that has to do with that a little bit. Why you're seeing an uptick in attendance there in Seattle, or at least what they're expecting to have in terms of an uptick. But last thing we're going to talk about before we potentially open up a mailbag, but I don't see anybody hopping in comment sections today, so we might roll right through the mailbag, save our podcast audience a little bit. But if you got any questions, surely into the comment section. But let's get on to these rule changes, right? I liked them, just like the rest of you guys. I liked all these rule changes. Game a little bit. Just, they best not try to bring that crap into the NFL on Sundays, though. I'll tell you that much. I like my Sunday NFL football, and I like it the way it is. Don't touch it. I'm serious. Don't touch it. But, I think it shows you how prehistoric coaches are, though, in that league, that they're even considering going for one when they can back up in the point after attempt 10 yards and go for three. I'm not an analytics guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not very smart, never claimed to be by any stretch of the means. But the numbers play damn sure ain't going for one. I'm going to tell you that right now. Analytics guy or not. That's not the smartest thing to do, which is just line up from the one for 1 point when you can back up a couple of yards and at least go for two from the 5. I like all the rule changes, especially the punt rule, right? And the kickoffs. If you're going to kick it in the end zone, you're wasting a play. You're telling our television audience, go to the bathroom, go grab a beer, go do whatever you got to do, come back after this, because guess what? You're not only going to have to wait through the kick, you're going to have to wait through another TV timeout. XFL said, no, we ain't doing none of that stuff. You're going to have to kick to these specialists. You're going to have to make them return the ball. If you kick it in the end zone, guess what? They're getting the ball at the 35. On punts, guess what? If you try to coffin corner and kick the ball out of bounds inside the 20, guess what? The team's getting it back at the 35. I like all of these rules, to kind of make the game a little faster. And also with that punt rule, right? It kind of encourages teams to go for it a little bit more on fourth down. Let's say it's 4th and 6 at the opponent's 46-yard line, right? Just past midfield for those who aren't quite following me here. Just past midfield, it's 4th and 6. You're probably more likely to go for that right there than kick the ball back, because you're just going to gain 11 yards of field position, right? If you kick the ball into the back of the end zone from the 46-yard line, Marquette King launches a boomer, the opponent's getting the ball back at the 35. That is a net gain of 11 yards when we could have gotten a first down and maintained possession for 6. So I like these rule changes. They're encouraging more offense. They're encouraging teams to be a little bit with some of these prehistoric coaches. And I understand that's all that's left, right? The old guys that, aren't in the NFL anymore or don't have an opportunity or are still like Hal Mumme being for the Vipers, I believe. That is an old guy. Hal Mumme was the head coach for Kentucky when Mike Leach and Hal Mumme invented Yankees. Like, it's been a while. Some of the people listening tonight weren't even born when Hal Mumme was last the head football coach. So it's been a while since some of these guys have coached. Bob Stoops is in this league down there at the Dallas team. So, some of these old guys are established in their previous careers, but now the other thing that's very blatantly obvious to me is that some of these referees don't even know the rules yet. And that's okay, because none of us do either. But you probably need to learn them before you get out there and roll around on national television on Fox ESPN. I think the other blatantly obvious thing is if you watch these as someone who's, a rookie, not necessarily a rookie, but like a 2 or 3 year and in this media industry, you can always tell the person on live television or on live radio that's definitely getting fed information through their ears while they're still trying to talk to, while you're trying to do the talking, is extremely hard if you've never done it. And it leaves a lot of people with this kind of thinking, trying to talk and listen to what's coming in on the ears and the headsets. Watch these referees in the XFL league. They're 100% getting told information, and that's okay. I'm fine with whoever it is in New York or whoever it is in that booth, the main referee booth that's watching the live broadcast of these football games. If they call in and see something that you're doing wrong as a referee, they need to get that right, because they can see things that we can't, right? We've said this since the beginning of replay in live sports. If I call sitting my fat butt on the couch watching the television broadcast, by God, you as a referee that's getting paid for it might want to be able to find a way to get it right, because all this outrage over whether or not his 2 feet were in bounds when the live footage looked like only 1.5, throw it all out, man. The most important thing, I personally believe, is getting it right. I mean, I'm all here for the human error and the human element being involved in sports. It's been there since the beginning of time, since, the Greeks threw the first disc, right? When the guy walked off the amount of steps when the guy threw the first discus, there was some human error and some human element at play in that situation. I'm all here for it, but not nowadays. Not when we have all the tools, prime example. Why isn't there an infrared radar or some type of system that runs across like VAR, like we have in soccer? Why is that not there on the pylons? You will never have to know whether a ball crossed the end zone line ever again. If the VAR goes off, it's a touchdown. If they maintain possession and the ball goes across the VAR line, it's a touchdown. The light goes off, the damn horns go off like the hockey game. everyone knows you scored. It's not that hard. I'm all here for bringing some technologies into the game as long as it speeds it up, as long as we're not sitting there having 4 or 5 minute instant review or instant replay reviews. And I don't think we're going to have that. I'm okay with it. And I'm totally okay with it. Like I said, when I started this rant, I'm totally okay with referees getting told something from the booth or something from the guys, wherever that is, whoever the big decision makers are, wherever that buck is being passed and wherever it finally lands, those are the guys that need to be making the decisions and need to be making sure everything is right during these football games. Again, because I think it's important that the product is clean, but most importantly, you get it right. Right? I mean, everyone, that New Orleans Saints thing was a nightmare. You feel bad for them, but you kind of don't, because they're Saints fans. If you ever know anything about Saints fan, I'm not even a Falcons fan. I know I'm here in black and gray and red and black, and don't believe in fandom. But what I'm going to tell you is the New Orleans Saints, fans can be a little iffy, but, as everyone's can. So, we'll, at that question right here, or at that point right here, 25, 26 minutes into tonight's show, we're going to open it up to any questions, and I'll filibuster until then. A little bit of a dry show here tonight. Not too many people listening or tuning in. But that's okay. Like I said, it's a Monday night. News is slow. Nobody really cares. Trust me. I can tell my site's performing today and over the last week or so that you guys are just kind of taking a breather and taking a break. National Signing Day was last week, whatever it was last week. So, yeah, everyone's just taking a collective breath. I'm okay with that. But if you got any questions about the National Signing Day period or whatever, feed them in right now. And I'd like some review from you guys that are watching us on YouTube, or if you found us on YouTube, get in those comment sections and tell us we can do better, or on the Facebook. You feel like we can do better at what we're not necessarily good at, what we can get better at. And when I say we, I mean me. As you can see, it's a one-man band up in here, folks. It's just me. I've been talking to myself, gas bagging for about 27 minutes. It's something I've been doing my whole entire life. So I love it. I'm passionate about it, and I'm, fairly decent at it. I think I'm a pretty decent talker. I don't know. You guys tell me. If I can get a comment in here trashing my talking ability, that'd be great too. But I got about 30 seconds left of filibustering because I've already just tortured my podcast audience with this last 2.5 minutes. So if you guys just want to hit in any questions, feel free to do so. If not, like I said, we'll cut the broadcast off. As a matter of fact, we will cut it off now we will leave the live stream up and available. So 27:32, we're going to cut the podcast audience off. Again, feel free to answer any questions we're taking all on the live stream. I got a question for you guys in the audience, the handful of you guys that are listening. What do you guys think about this new intro music right here? I'm thinking my intro and outro. How about that? I think it's a little more nightly, right? Nice little vibe to it. I'm hoping you guys can hear that, because if not, I'm down looking like an idiot like I always am. But anyways, no questions rolled through. That's all good. You guys are busy. Hope you enjoyed tonight's short broadcast, right? Like the Lazy Gats over there at the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gotts told us about the Lazy River, and it's a way of life, right? Open up the show, just let it roll. Wherever the show takes you, wherever the river takes you, just ride it, baby. Just go with it. But that's going to be our show for tonight. Wherever you found us, appreciate you. Show us some support. If you hopped in, there's a podcast available. Check it out, SEC Nightly. Wherever you find your podcast, you'll find us. I've been your humble host, man, Brooks Austin. We will see you guys tomorrow night.